Hi, teachers and trainers. This is Novelty. It's a brain changer for learners. My name is Kelly Pfeiffer. I've been training adults for 17 years, and now I also train trainers and teachers how to use the same engaged learning strategies that I've been using and I know work so well. So in this video, I'm going through my set of slides that I created on SlideShare, and this will cover a little bit about the brain science behind Novelty and why Novelty is so important for the brain and why it's an effective teaching tool. And also I'll give you some tips on some small ways you can integrate Novelty into your classroom and your face-to-face training events. And this does work for online as well, but my primary focus is face-to-face events, and that's how I love to teach. So let's get started. I started with this slide so you can see that it is just a slide on SlideShare. So let's make it a little bit larger so that you will get a better experience while I'm narrating these. So again, this is how trainers and teachers can improve learning by using simple yet novel teaching strategies. All right, let's start with this image. We've got a plain piece of paper and a paper folded into a sphere. Which one's more interesting? Yep, you've seen that plain piece of paper a bunch of times. Have you ever seen a paper folded into a sphere? Probably very few times, if any. So which one piques your interest more? Yeah, this one probably. It's more interesting. It's different. Something new, something novel. And this demonstrates that fact about the brain, that the human brain doesn't pay attention to boring things, says John Medina in his book, Brain Rules. So if you'd like to learn more neuroscience, Brain Rules, many of you may know of this book or have read it, but it's got some great information in it. Now, I'm going to have tips with some strategies that use this idea of novelty. So the Brain Rules book has a lot of neuroscience, but it doesn't have as many concrete ideas about what to do, and that's what I teach in my trainings with trainers and teachers. So the human brain loves novelty, and for a minute we're going to learn about why. It won't take too long to understand the neuroscience behind it. It helps keep the brain engaged with learning when we're using something new and different, not the same old strategy. And if you want to look up this information online, you can find plenty of research, plenty of information online about why novelty is helpful for the brain. Let's talk about why trainers and teachers continue to teach in this same boring way instead of using novelty. Well, this idea of teaching people was not based on brain science. Originally, classrooms were designed for efficiency and cost effectiveness. How can we educate the most amount of people with the fewest amount of dollars? And so that's how we got this idea of the student sitting and the teacher teaching. And really, I mean, that's what people thought was best. And you need to sit still to learn, and you need to do a lot of listening. And now we know the brain is not really functioning optimally for that way to learn. So, do these strategies look interesting? No, they're pretty boring. What could these instructors do? Let's learn. They could read the research and implement the strategies. And so here's where we're going to move forward with some neuroscience and then some strategies. All of these photographs of trainings are from my actual trainings that I've done in the past 17 years. So if you're seeing these candid photos, they are ones that I took in my trainings. So it's the brain science that we're going to rely on. I've got these strategies, but the brain science does support it. So this brain-based strategy is novelty. And why does novelty help the brain learn? Here's the neuroscience part. It's the pinky brain. What's the pinky brain? It's another name for the reticular activating system. So that Reticular activating system is in the middle of your brain, and it is like the gatekeeper for what information the brain pays attention to. So we call it the pinky brain because that little sliver part of your brain is about the size of your pinky finger. It's in the back of your brain. We can call it the RAS, and again, I said it's the gatekeeper. It decides what the brain is going to pay attention to, because the brain cannot pay attention to everything, not all of the stimuli that it receives. And that would be too overwhelming for the brain. So that goes back to that principle that John Medina said, is that the brain doesn't pay attention to boring things. The brain has already surveyed the scene, come into the classroom, everything looks familiar and nice and safe. The brain's going to pay attention to things that are different in the environment. The RAS decides what's important to notice and what's not important to notice. Again, it doesn't pay attention to boring things, the normal routine things that happen every day. Now, for those school teachers who are with students on a daily basis, those daily routines are important. So we're not saying pitch out the routines. You need to keep those routines. That provides some structure that's very important and a sense of safety for your learners. But then you can sprinkle the novelty along with it too. So we need to put some different things in our learning environment so that the brain will pay attention. So now that you know that the brain doesn't pay attention to boring things, what can we do? We're going to change how we design teaching and training. It doesn't mean you have to change everything. Remember, I said we're going to sprinkle. So you don't have to turn your classroom into a party or a three-ring circus. That would be going to the extreme. We need a balance of novelty and structure. Unless you teach clown school, then you might need to have a three-ring circus, of course. So there are lots of ways to add novelty to your training and teaching design. And I've got some tips that are going to take your teaching style, your teaching strategies from normal, humdrum, and monotonous to fresh and original, intriguing, and noteworthy. Novelty tip number 1 is just use the 10-minute rule. So what is the 10-minute rule? Change teaching strategies every 10 minutes. Now, this is easier than it sounds. If you are the kind of trainer that lectures a lot, lecture for 10 minutes in one spot and then change where you're standing, move to the back of the room or the side of the room or the side of the stage, wherever you are, change something. That would be an example of just a very small change. There are other ways to change. So you can have your students write. Writing is very kinesthetic. It helps them learn. You can have them sort on a topic. You can have them using graphic organizers that they created themselves or ones that you handed out to them. So if you're the kind of a trainer, maybe college professor that lectures a lot and you're wanting to make changes, you're going to make very small changes at first. Teachers who teach in elementary school may be very used to these types of activities, depending on where you teach. I've been doing some training in China, and the China school system is still very sitting and listening rather than doing some of these things. So the teachers that have attended my training in China are really so interested in this, and they're taking it back to their schools and using it right away. Okay, so you're helping this reticular activating system by just changing something. And again, we don't have to change everything. We're going to change something small every 10 minutes. Novelty tip number 2 is create image-rich handouts. That is novel. The brain is attracted to images more than words. Here's an example of an interactive handout, because novelty tip number 3 is also make the handouts interactive. Most of my handouts don't have tons of words. They have white space for the students to be filling in and some images for them to draw on. Here's some other ideas about how to make the handouts interactive. I use very simple tools. Nothing costs a lot of money. And there are so many different ways that you can integrate novelty that you could just change one small thing one day and then the next day you're going to change something different. But these small changes have a big impact. And so these are some of my favorite go-to tools on the screen. You can find these at any discount store, any office supply store. They're just readily available. Sticky notes, paper plates. So what could you do with these that is novel for students? Here's some possibilities. These are photographs from trainings that I have done, except the one in the upper left is not a training. I didn't have a picture of when I'd use tape on the floor, but I do use tape on the floor. So the process of how you're using this is the novel part too. So here's some ideas visually. And when I train on the process of how to do these. And all of the activities that I teach are content independent, meaning that you could take this same process and supply your own content with what you teach and still use the same general activity. All right, when you're starting, if you're just starting this out, just change one small thing, like I said. And again, you're not going to have to change everything. You're going to change one thing about the way you're teaching, something that was different from yesterday, so that if you're in the schools, every day your students are going to have one way to learn that is slightly different from the day before. You could do one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And then once you start learning to teach this way and train this way, then you will eventually work up to that 10-minute rule where you're changing every 10 minutes to keep the brain engaged. And again, it's some small changes. So I challenge you in your next class or training, change just one teaching strategy, try something new. And I've got a resource where you can go and get many, many, many more ideas. Novelty is just one of the concepts that I talk about. There are plenty of other concepts that are going to help your learners be more engaged. And I've got a great resource for you. So Sharon Bowman is the trainer of trainers that I learned all this awesome stuff from. And I am just now creating my website to help trainers, but Sharon has had her website up for years and years. And you can go to her website at bowperson.com and get many more training ideas, see the books that she has published, get some free stuff, read her articles, and you can get many, many, many more ideas on her website. You can also see her under training. There's training events. You could see where you can attend a 2-day training from the back of the room training from either me or one of the other facilitators for training from the back of the room. But that is a wealth of resources, her website. So if you're a teacher or a trainer, thanks for spending time with me today. And you want to engage your learners so that they're more focused, they feel more engaged, and they interact more with the content that you teach. Use novelty in very small ways. If you want more ideas from me, you can click the like button on this page. You can also, on this video rather, you can also subscribe to this YouTube channel because this summer, the summer of 2018, I'm going to be making more videos about how to engage learners. This is my first video, but I will be making more, as I said. So again, these two photos on this page are from some of my work in China. Again, use novelty. That's how you're going to engage the human brain, but it doesn't have to be over the top. I know it feels like that in our culture sometimes because of all the video games and all the just tons of stimuli that are in our environment. But these small changes actually are just as good. I'm Kelly Pfeiffer. I created these slides. I've been using Novelty since 2004, and I would never go back to another way of training. And as I said, it's not just Novelty I use, there are other strategies. I'll be making more videos about those. And now I also teach trainers and teachers how to use Novelty in your classroom. And you can visit my website at gointeractivetraining.com. I'm just now starting that. So if you visit in 2018 in the summer, you'll see that it's kind of bare bones right now, but I'll be adding to it. I am on Twitter at gointeractivekp or gointeractivekellypfeiffer. And I am on Instagram at gointeractivetraining. So that is all I have. Thanks for visiting. And again, if you want to subscribe to my channel, I will be offering more videos about teaching and training with engaged learning strategies. Bye for now.